Welcome to The Secret Life of Parkinson's, a podcast created by people living with Parkinson's to help break the stigma of a disease no one likes to talk about. Now, here are your hosts, Jessica Krauser and Brian Baker. So today we have AnnMarie O'Connor. AnnMarie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So aside from being a fashion expert, there's a book that you wrote.
Yes.
And it's out called Twitch. Because you were diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2021, is that correct?
That's correct. Okay. Yeah, I was 48. Yeah.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about yourself and like your career in fashion, and then we'll get into Parkinson's.
Well, I started in fashion when I moved back from London. I was working in radio and radio sales and promotions in London. And I was kind of working adjacent to what I wanted to do. I wanted to work in fashion writing, and I was doing that freelance. And I came to my 5-year anniversary in London. And I thought I either stay or I go. And so I moved back home and I decided to go freelance. And I started working this is around 2008 when I started working for the Irish Examiner. They're my home, really. I've been working for them freelance for, gosh, how many years is it now? 17 years.
Oh, wow.
So I've worked with the likes of, the Sunday Times Style and other Irish magazines and Irish newspapers, but they've always been home for me. They've given me the most opportunities. They've sent me to London Fashion Week when I hadn't a clue. They sent me to Paris Fashion Week.
Cool.
All my stories of wangling seats, front row seats to shows I didn't have invitations to are all courtesy of the grace that they extended to me and the confidence that they had in me. So they have such a special place in my heart.
Oh, that's awesome. That sounds like so much fun. But you still work, right?
I do, yeah. I don't work as a stylist anymore because insurance doesn't cover poking models with pins and so I have to I'm tremor dominant, so I have to be super careful. Like I can't do that really like close work anymore, and everything's always under a time crunch at photo shoots, and so you live off your nerves. And without a tremor you can kind of facilitate that and put it into your work, but when your hand is doing this all the time, even if you were in a consultancy capacity, there comes a time. I did it justice. I worked as a stylist from 2009. So I did it for the guts of I stopped around 2021, like when I was diagnosed.
Okay.
Prior to that, I was trying to do it through COVID, and it wasn't very successful. And I find with Parkinson's that energy management is really difficult. I get exhausted very easily. And so when you're dealing with anything that's high pressure and high stress, then that just leaves you super fatigued. Even when I was diagnosed, a few months afterwards, I thought I could still live my old life. And I did a photo shoot that was really high stress. And I spent literally a week on the sofa afterwards. I wasn't really able for anything. So you get to a point when you're like, look, we had a good run at it. There's certain things that you just can't do anymore.
Isn't it weird how some activities that we do hit us a week later?
If I miss sleep until I catch up on that sleep, is that what you're talking about?
No, I mean, just if you're doing something when you go on work trips or something, but when you're doing something out of the ordinary, and then after the walk that we have a nonprofit and we have our fundraiser in the next week and a half, and literally every year after the walk, it's that whole week I'm just exhausted.
Yeah, because you're on such a high the week of it.
I know. Yeah.
And before that photo shoot that I referenced, I was on a work trip. And I went from the work trip right into the photo shoot, thinking that I could do the same as I always could. Yeah, Parkinson's can be really humbling, I find.
So how was your diagnosis? What was that? Because everybody has most people have a bad diagnosis story. Mine was fine, but what was yours like?
Mine was, I was doing a photo shoot during COVID because we had such strict lockdown restrictions because Ireland is such a small country. It's the size of Rhode Island, which is the fourth smallest state in the US. So our healthcare system is, equally small, and it was under a lot of pressure. So we had very, very strict lockdown restrictions. So there was an ease in restrictions, and I was able to style a shoot or two, and I was working on a shoot. And it was a few days later, I woke up and I had like a really sore shoulder, and I couldn't figure out
Hmm.
why. And I thought, oh, it's because I was carrying around really heavy bags. That was it,
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think much of it until about 2 weeks later. And I was lying on my bed and I was debating whether I should take a shower with my very expensive bra on or cut it off with the scissors
Huh.
because I was unable to lift my arm above my head, let alone unclasp my bra. So I was in so much pain. And then it happened, and I got this twitch in my right fingers. So it was like this very imperceptible movement. But because we were in COVID and in lockdown and everything was quiet and unscheduled, I had the time to listen to my body. And I don't think I would have heard, listen to those because it was such a subtle cue. And it developed over a few weeks until it became a steady shake, like with
Huh.
a wave-like rhythm. And so I called my sister and I was like, look, I'm worried. And she said, don't worry about it. It's probably a trapped nerve. And she was saying the longest you'll spend is like 2 weeks, off work, and then you'll be fine again. And, just promise me that you'll see your GP when, the country goes back to normal. So that was around September when I had the shoulder, November when the tremor got really bad, and March before I was able to see my GP. So by the time I had seen my GP, it was a very, noticeable tremor. So I had three MRIs, all of which came back um, clear.
Mm-hmm.
And by this stage, I had the shoulder, my tremor, I had a really heavy sensation in my right leg, and I was
Mm-hmm.
dragging it. I had restless legs, fatigue, insomnia, and I had muscle contractions in my feet, which I now know is dystonia.
Yeah.
And so I didn't know what all, it was like just evolving over the course of those 9 months. And then about 2 weeks before my GP called me to tell me that the brain MRI came back clear and that she wanted to send me to the acute medical unit because she wasn't happy with the results. I said to her, I have had a few more symptoms. I started getting really cramped handwriting. And I
Mm-hmm.
joke about it and I say it was before Christmas because I was like saying, God, they look more like ransom notes and Christmas cards I was writing. And I was like, oh, AnnMarie isn't getting season's greetings this year. So I like ripped up the cards. And then my hand was cupping inwards
Yeah.
and I couldn't brush my teeth. I found it hard to like put on makeup or open like a bag of coffee without spreading, espresso to the stars. So she organized for me to go to the acute medical unit the following day. And she just said, look, pack a sandwich, and a book. You're going to be there from 9 until 5. And you'll probably see a nurse, a doctor, a few neurologists, and hopefully we'll get to the bottom of this.
Wow.
And that's exactly what happened. And by 4 o'clock, I met the man who would be my consultant neurologist who diagnosed me with early onset Parkinson's.
Were you shocked, or did you do any research beforehand?
I was living in delusion in Delulu land because it was safe. I had no money because I couldn't work. I was going through perimenopause as well. So every time I washed my hair, it was if like a small hedgehog manifested in the drain. I was losing so much hair. And had night sweats and brain fog. So I was dealing with that. I was dealing with the uncertainty of whatever this was. And I'm always one to think it's got to be something that's an easy explanation.
Uh-huh.
And I was kind of hanging my hat on that, even though all of the symptoms were pointing towards a different direction. But I wouldn't let my head go there.
Hmm.
And I didn't research anything. I was just like, no, this has to be something that's an easy explanation. So I got a crash course in dopamine and everything Parkinson's related, and it was wild. I think it took a long time for me to catch up with it because emotionally I didn't connect with the news. I'm very much like, I'm practical, I'm a Taurian, and, so I was taking in the information like, an A student going, okay, tell me what this is. This is great. This is what I need to do, blah, 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 blah. And all the literature I got was of men and women in their senior years, all the photographs. And I think somewhere subconsciously, I thought, that's not me. And that, like, the tablets that I was given would be enough of a buffer between me and Parkinson's, at least until the honeymoon period, which they spoke about, was over. So I was thinking, well, I've got about 5 years before things kind of get a bit iffy, and I can kind of get my finances together. I had it all planned, and then within 2 weeks, I started getting dyskinesia in my shoulder, and then I quickly realized that Parkinson's calls the shots, and things can change on a dime, and they did. And I had like a roller coaster of, it was really difficult because I'm tremor dominant to get the Cinemet didn't keep my shake under control. And my doctor had said, you could go on a dopamine agonist, but there's a caveat. There's a 1 in 6 chance of, an ICD, and these are things you may need to think of. So I was quite conscious of taking the long route and taking the more mindful route, and thinking, well, we'll add smaller things and see how they work out. And so it was about 13 months of trialing different combinations of drugs before I found the sweet spot. And that was ironically with the dopamine agonist.
Oh, really? So
But
that's what's working?
yeah, it's working. That's the thing. But like at the moment, I'm finding that my tremor is starting to get a bit worse. Like my off times I'm more off than I'm on. Like I'm off about an hour before my next dose, and sometimes somewhere in between. And it's been 5 years really since 2020. So I'm expecting it. I think the me who was diagnosed in the early stages would have panicked and thought, this is it. It's something bad is happening. But now I realize, it's just, there's a lot of tweaking, and there's constant adjusting, and that's okay. And I think I've kind of I don't fear Parkinson's as much as I used to, perhaps because I know it better, but I think I know myself a lot better too. I was saying to someone the other day how much I've learned from having Parkinson's, and I said, it sounds like I don't want to give it any credit because I don't think it deserves it. But by the same token, like if you don't take away some lessons sometimes, what's it all for? So it's taught me a lot about surrendering to what is, and learning to live with it rather than trying to fight so hard against it.
That's exactly the kind of like the motto that we have, like living within Parkinson's.
Yeah, it's like you're not giving in to like, oh, it's going to take over, but it's how do you just adjust your life, just like anything that happens to an individual, right? What did you learn from Parkinson's?
I think change is so hard. I think the adjustments are so immediate and so necessary. And I think when you get control over the lifestyle management and the hydration and the sleep and the eating on time and the taking your meds on time, and then you're dealing with the relational side of things, how people react. I'm lucky I have incredible friends and family who've been nothing but supportive. But I've heard from other people with Parkinson's stories where, they've lost friends, or they've lost jobs, or people who are keeping their diagnoses quiet for fear of, for out of fear, and within many instances, rightly so, because you could be a caretaker of an elderly parent, or, have kids that you don't want to inspire fear in. But I consider myself lucky in that I have a very strong support system around me.
No, I think that definitely makes a huge difference with all of us. But so it sounds like, and I just want to touch on this for a second, but do you think that your symptoms came on. I don't want to say they seem to have come on like rather quickly, but it sounds like you were just more in tune with it. And I feel like you mentioned that already because it was COVID. But I don't know. I think it's just interesting because I think about myself and I'm like, maybe I guess mine was probably like that too. But I had, I was working and the kids were, busy and whatnot. And it's like, so there's things happening in between. But when I think about the time that I started having some symptoms, and by the time I went back to my neurologist for like the second time, I had, like you said, I had more symptoms. So I'm just wondering if we were quiet with our.
And you're not the first person to mention like perimenopause or menopause in that same time frame as.
Yeah. And we need to understand that more.
What's funny is my sister went to a psychic and she kept this from me at first because she was like, I didn't know whether to tell you or not. In part because she knew that I was going to go to the psychic next. She didn't want to inform my experience or have me ask any leading questions. And the psychic had said to her, do you have a sister with like a condition, like a chronic illness? And she thought it was MS at first. And she goes, and I always said to my sister, don't feed the psychic, because I'm like, I love psychics. I'm like, a good psychic will never ask you for information.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, no, she has Parkinson's. And she said, so she's had it for 10 years. She was diagnosed. And she goes, she's had it since she was 38. And my sister said, no, she was diagnosed and she was 48. And she was diagnosed and she was 48, but she's had it for 10 years. She's had it since she was 38. And I was like, wow, because you hear these stories of Parkinson's being like an iceberg, and that the interesting thing is I'm TMI, but chronically constipated and have been for a very long time. And my mom would always say, I'm calling out my mom now, but me and your grandma were always like that.
Yeah.
We were both the same. It's inherited. But I remember I went to the doctor around 2017 specifically because I hadn't gone in 2 weeks and I had been doing everything like at the time I was going to yoga 4 times a week, like drinking water, doing all the things and nothing was happening. I was taking laxatives. It still wasn't working. And so they had to give me something stronger. And so when I think of that, I'm like, wow, that's a preclinical symptom.
Yeah, absolutely.
That could be
that could be what started it.
Like sometimes you could have something so small like that for a while and then it catches up with you and then it just starts to grow.
We have a podcast on that too.
We do. If you haven't seen it, we have a podcast on Roz, one of our friends who has Parkinson's. She dealt with constipation for, God, I don't even know how many years. She says since she was like a child. But we had her and Dr. Samantha Evans, who's out in Seattle, and they talked about like all the different things that she's tried and what's worked and what hasn't worked. So if you haven't caught that episode, highly recommend it if you're still dealing with it.
I must watch it. I must watch it.
It's a more recent one.
By it.
Yeah. Oh, and the stuff that she shared was really fascinating. So you wrote this book, Twitch.
Yes.
What made you write the book?
I wanted to write the book to kind of like own my own story, and I wanted to process everything that was happening to me. I wanted, like, part of it was legacy, to see where I had come from and where I was at that point. I think for me, I didn't expect the grief to be a big part of my journey. I remember when I was about 3 months in, my dentist, of all people, had said to me, I had gone to the dentist, I hadn't been for a few months, and when they ask you, are you on any new medication that we should know about? And I said, oh, because I'm the type of person who I didn't even have aspirin in my house. Like, I was never sick. I never had a headache even. And I said, I've got Parkinson's. And I said it so casually, and I'm like, oh, I'm on Cinemed, I'm on this, that, and the third. And he went, oh my God, that must be such a land. And I kept thinking to myself, because he wasn't the first person that said that. I was like, why is everyone saying this? And I was lying on my sofa and I was scrolling through TikToks, And I came across this voiceover and it said, with Parkinson's, we only treat the symptoms, we don't treat the disease. It's progressive and incurable and will only get worse. And that's the moment that it hit me that this is happening to you,
Yeah.
to me. Like this is you. This is going to happen to you. And I cried for the first time, and I cried and I cried. And the second time I cried was when I had a reading. I told you I like psychics. And my grandmother came through and she said, "You've got a glass case around your heart and you don't let people in, and you can't do this alone. And you have to," she said, the she saw the glass heart shattering. And that's when like I started to cry because she's right. I was always I never wanted to be a burden. I never wanted to put anyone through anything. I lost my dad when I was 4, and it was such a traumatic experience losing something so quickly and someone so dear to you. He died of a brain hemorrhage. So he had a brain hemorrhage. 3 weeks later, he died on Christmas Day,
Oh,
and boof, he was gone.
I'm so
So,
sorry.
that's kind of destabilizing change at such a young age made me think, I just want to keep the status quo. So don't be a burden. Don't rock the boat. Don't,
Oh,
even though nobody thought I was a burden. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
that existed in my
But
own
in your
baby
own head,
mind.
yeah.
But I knew after these incidences that happened, I was like, you've got to deal with you've got some grief issues, girl. And you've got to, find out where they come from and and work on them. I went to a scream club. I went to
What's a scream club?
yeah, yeah, just to learn how to let it all out because I wasn't an angry person because you learn that anger isn't a positive. Like when I grew up, I grew up in Irish Catholic, Ireland. So,
Uh-huh.
you're taught good girls don't get angry. But and I remember I was on the beach and it was this drumming, they had this primal drumming, and you were supposed to listen to this chanting, which was just all words and syllables, but no meaning, so that you clear your head. And then we all went out onto the beach and holding hands, like at like 7 o'clock in the morning in County Cork, and screamed, but I couldn't scream. It was like something stopped me. And it was a lesson going, I have to learn to deprogram this A student, this good girl,
Huh.
and to allow the grief, to allow myself to get angry. Because, I kept being very stoic, saying, well, why not me? Of course, when people say, are you angry? Like, why you? And I'm like, well, why not me? It happens to 18,000 people in Ireland. But you can, I remember someone saying to me, you've got the moral righteous anger, or you've got the kind of moral authority, as it were, as a person with Parkinson's, to get effing angry and to scream and to shout about it. Like you don't want to be shouting about it all the time, but like, you can let it out and
Yeah.
that's okay. So I suppose to answer your question, part of it was to help me process my feelings about what I was going through. And the other part was to take ownership of my story so that it wasn't something that was happening to me. It was something that I could share with other people. And hopefully, like memoirs aren't just about one person's life, they're an invitation to witness and to connect. So hopefully people will feel seen and heard. Hope, and there's a lot of humor in it as well. Humor is my kind of default. When something goes wrong, I tend to laugh at myself. And if whether you get some sort of hope or information or just simply a good laugh at my expense, that it's something that we can all share together.
So what do you want people to take away from your book? Like what's something that that you want them to walk away with?
I want people to know that whatever degree of uncertainty you're going through, It doesn't have to be Parkinson's. It could be your career, your relationship, another unrelated health matter, that you realize that things will be different, but they'll be the same, if that makes sense. You inside you, the you deepest part of you, that primal part of you will always be the same. On the outside, things may be different, the pace may be slower, the rhythm might be slower, things might be a bit clunkier, but you're always going to be you. And the strength that you find is what you need to I suppose there's strength in not defining yourself by the struggle. And I think it's connecting with the life that you have and making the best of it and learning how, as we were saying earlier, how to live well with Parkinson's.
I like that message because honestly, I think of, I don't know, I think of if you were to tell me years ago, like this is going to be you in 10 years and 20 years and 30 years. At that point in time in your life, you'd probably look at it and be like, oh God, like, is that really what I'm going to do or how I'm going to be or what I want to do, like, be like. But at the same time, when you live through that and you're constantly evolving every single day and you're making those changes, it's almost, I mean, I'm at peace with it. I'm okay with it because if you were to look back and you would probably think your life differently and you went jumping from one person, one side of you to like the other side of you of like Parkinson's now, it's like, wow, I can't see that. But once you live it, and if you live it right, meaning like you're evolving with it, I feel like it's a little bit easier. You're looking at me like I'm crazy.
No, I'm just thinking out loud, thinking to myself about
your own.
But I think if you resist something, anything you resist persists, it's going to push back. You know?
I don't know why I always use this analogy, but I always joke of like, and not that Parkinson's and kids are the same, but it's like, when you're pregnant and you have kids, it's like you have to adjust your life. You don't just live the same way.
You had to quit drinking.
You had to quit drinking. I had to quit drinking for 9 months. No, but like, you had to adjust your lifestyle.
Right.
And you were okay with that because you were, I guess maybe not everybody plans on having a baby, but like you still adjust to that new life. And that's the same thing that we do here. And, you don't know how that whole process is going to be like when they're infants to toddlers to teenagers and all that stuff. But you learn and you adjust along the way. I think of it the same way with Parkinson's.
And also you learn how to be present because if you were, I know the one thing that stopped me from having kids is I was constantly future tripping going, well, what if my child is a drug addict? And what if my child like hates me? And what if I hate my child? And like all these things that may never happen. And if they do, you will get through them. But the beauty of having a child and, living in the present, I think there's something to be said with Parkinson's as well, is that I've had to learn how to be present and not future trip and think what's going to happen to me down the line. That doesn't mean I don't think about it, but I have to, like the days I feel great, I feel awesome. And I do everything. I do all the things. I go for coffee, I meet friends, I'm so excited. I feel great. And I'm actually really jazzed at how good I feel because some days you just don't feel great, and not to be corny and say it makes you so grateful, but it does. It's the contrast that makes you feel grateful. You're like, man, today's a good day. This is awesome. Thank you.
So you may have answered the last question that I had, but like if we have a lot of newly diagnosed people that watch this podcast, I mean, we have a lot of people who've been diagnosed for years that find us too, but somebody who's newly diagnosed, what is something that you would want to say to them?
I tell them that you need to go easy on yourself. I was always thinking there's no right way to do Parkinson's. Again, that was my A student wanting to do people pleasing kind of personality that I thought, oh, I'm going to, show myself how it's done. I'll do this. There's no right way. You're going to make mistakes and that's okay. And nobody's judging you, but be prepared to play the long game. play by the rules. You know, if someone gives you literature and says it's important that you're hydrated, it's important that you exercise, it's important that you eat well, do as much as you can. Do the things. I know the worst thing, like I don't do all the things. I am terrible at drinking water. I love tea and coffee. I live in Ireland where it's perpetually raining, and like the idea of putting more liquid and more water into my system just seems like, you know,
Yeah.
antithetical to my lifestyle. But I have to make an effort, and I don't always. I'll be honest, I don't always achieve it. There's a bottle of
Yeah.
water sitting on my table over there, and I have to stand over the sink and like drink as much as I can of it. But do your best, because the more you can meet it halfway, like your medication isn't going to just do all the work. You know, it's not the magic pill. I kind of thought that it was. I thought if I take these, then that's grand, but it's
Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
you know. And to also just be aware that it's changeable and things will change, and you've got to roll with it rather than resist it. You know, be aware of it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I think that moment when I felt the twitch and I had that opportunity to listen to my body, I took that mindset with me. And although I'm not as, um, I don't keep a diary like I used to, like a daily diary. That was really good kind of housekeeping in the initial stages. But I always log, whether it's on my phone or mentally, when I'm having my off periods, when I'm experiencing something that's a bit odd. And I tell my consultant everything,
Good. I think
everything.
that's an awesome message. I know you can't leave anything off the table. That's for sure, because
No,
you don't know what's
no.
connected and
Yeah,
what's not. Oh, AnnMarie, thank you so much for joining us. I'm super excited to check out your book, Twitch, that is out
thank
now.
you.
So where can people get it? Is it available?
You can get it on Amazon. You can get it if you go to AnnMarieO'Connor.me, or if you go to my Instagram, I have a link tree.
Okay.
And then you can click on the Genius link, and it has all of the retailers. And some of the retailers that are based in Europe deliver to the United States.
Okay.
But you can get it. It's on the Michael J. Fox Foundation website as well.
Awesome.
So
That's great.
yeah, you
Well,
can check it out there.
I'll definitely check that out. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. We had a great discussion, I think, for anybody who's, again, newly diagnosed and those that are still just trying to grapple with the effects of it. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
In our last 30 seconds, I will leave you with this. I think there's definitely a lot of things that people can take away from today's discussion, especially living in the now and making changes. It's not that we're letting Parkinson's take over our lives, but it's that we're making changes along the way so that we can live well with Parkinson's, which is something that we constantly talk about. So with that, we will see you all next time. Thanks.